Today we continue to listen the liberation of the two chief disciples, Venerable Sariputra and Venerable Moggallana. Upatissa and Kolida tried to find out the Mokkha Dhamma, the liberation from aging, sickness and death. First they met Sinjaya. The doctrine of Sinjaya was just all about evasive method. The would-be Venerable Sariputra, endowed with great wisdom, took just a while to learn about all Sinjaya doctrine. Evidently, there was very little to learn about this doctrine. And Upadisa and Kolida considered that the doctrine of Sinjaya had nothing to do with the liberation from aging, sickness, and death. So they realized this doctrine was worth nothing, and then considered this Jabudvipa continent is huge and wide enough for us to find someone wise and noble, capable of teaching us how to be liberated. And then they decided we make further effort in search of a noble person who is capable of teaching us the liberation. It naturally takes a lot of pain and trouble to search for the noble Dhamma, the true Dhamma, before we find it. At one time, a male devotee said to most Venerable Masi Sayadaw, I had to take a lot of time and trouble to search for the Dhamma. It is true that it takes a lot of time and trouble to find the Dhamma. You are most likely to give a try to one method after another until you find the right method. Now, all the yogis are very fortunate. You find the authentic teaching, the true teaching of the Buddha, observing the natural phenomena as they really are. If you continuously and meticulously observe the natural phenomena as they really are, you can be liberated. At that time, the Upadesa and Kolida did not know about the occurrence of the Buddha, the appearance of the Buddha, because it had not been very long since the Buddha had appeared. So they went to one place after another in search for the Dhamma. They approached many famous individuals for the true Dhamma, but none of them could give a correct answer to their question of how to attain the liberation from the torturous cycles of aging, sickness, and death. Therefore, later they made an agreement between them. Whoever first finds the Dhamma, he must share it with the other. They made an agreement between them like this. One day, ascetic Upadisa came back to Rajagaha city. From the place he had traveled in search of the Dhamma. At that time, Buddha dwelt in Bamboo Grove Monastery, Veluvana, and delivered a sermon called Tirakota outside the wall. Probably the Buddha had just arrived Rajagaha after having assigned 60 arahants to the missionary work. At the end of his first reigning retreat at Isipatana or deer sanctuary near Varanasi. So Buddha gave instruction to the missionary bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, take a missionary tour for the people's well-being. Don't go two together on the same road. Bhikkhus, teach the Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. According to this instruction by the Buddha, these 60 arahants each took a missionary tour into 60 different directions. Among them was Venerable Asiji, the youngest of the group of 5 ascetic Pinjavagiya, who had just arrived at Rajagaha city. So on the way home, Upadesa saw Venerable Asiji during his alms round in Rajagaha. Even at the first sight, Upadesa was greatly impressed by Venerable Asiji's facial expression that was very peaceful and graceful. Undoubtedly, Venerable Asiji, having eradicated all kinds of mental defilements, would have been very peaceful and graceful. And Upadesa also found Venerable Asiji physical behavior to be very gentle and dignified. Arahant bodily behavior are always perfectly gentle. They naturally behave gracefully and elegantly without going forward or backward, looking ahead or aside, because they always behave mindfully. During the retreat, all meditators admire their self diligent meditators behaving with mindfulness and clear comprehension, sati sampajanya. You can also to be you can also be found to be gentle, graceful, and dignified. During the practice, you satisfy your practice of your own behavior. So gentle and concurrent with the object, the mind is very clear. Of course, meditator without mindfulness cannot be dignified. His or her fellow meditators or people around can easily realize. Of course, meditation teacher does notice that weak behavior. Venerable Asiji, as an arahant, was fully endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension. Sati Sampajanya. No wonder he was very graceful. He was very elegant in physical gesture, whether going forward or backward, looking ahead or aside, bending or stretching his limbs, and so on. Ascetic Upadisa had never seen such an dignified person before, so he was fully convinced if there is anyone in this world to be endowed with noble Dharma, that must be this bhikkhu. He totally believed Venerable Asiji to be a noble person who had attained the noble Dhamma. So he felt greatly inspired to learn about Venerable Asiji, who he was, who his preceptor was, and under whose guidance he had practiced. He wanted to know. But he knew that it was not right time to ask this question, because Venerable Asiji was stay on his arms round. It was very considerate of him to wait for the right time to ask question. So he just kept telling Venerable Asiji, when Upadisa knew that Venerable Asiji would stop one place, he reached one place, the suitable place, and Venerable Asiji was about to eat his meals in that place. Upadisa spread his leather rug for Venerable Asiji and offered him water. He brought along with him. These behavior are some of the duties a pupil is supposed to do for his or her teacher. Then Venerable Asiji had his meal, and Upadisa was watching. All the behaviors are done with Sati Sambhasanya. Mindfulness and clear comprehension. So during the intensive retreat, clear comprehension is the very important part for the yogis, daily activities. Clear comprehension is what is beneficial or what is not beneficial. You need to know. And when you find out that it is beneficial, then you must do is to see whether it is suitable or not. Suppose if by eating some food you get uncomfortable, then that food is not suitable for you. If by eating some food the unwholesome mental state increase in your mind and wholesome mental state diminish in your mind, then that food is not suitable. So meditator must find out whether the food, although it is beneficial, is suitable or not, and only when it is suitable are you to take it. So clear comprehension of what is beneficial and clear comprehension is what is suitable. These two kinds of clear comprehension can be used both in and out of the meditation. And Gochara Sambhasanya, there is clear comprehension of the domain of the meditators. That means just not giving up meditation while eating, walking, standing, etc. Suppose eating with mindfulness or applying mindfulness to the activities involved in the act of eating. That is what the yogis at the retreat. So when you eat, you have to be mindful or you have to make mental notes of the small activities involved in the act of eating. Now Venerable Asiji mindfully behave in eating. First, he may pick up the bowl or plates or spoon and forks, and then he may put the food on the plates. He may take the food in the spoon, then bring the food to the mouth. He open the mouth and put the food into the mouth, then chew the food, and then he swallow it down, and the food gets into the stomach and it is digested there. And then digest the food to be expelled from the body. So meditators should do with mindfulness in all these activities. You look at the food, you're mindful of your looking, you pick up the bowls, you're mindful of the picking up, and you make notes of picking up, and then when you take the food into the spoon, you make mental notes as taking. And then when you bring the food to the mouth, you mindful of the bringing. And when you open the mouth, be mindful of opening. You put the food into the mouth, and you mindful of putting. And when you chew, and you be mindful of the chewing. And when you swallow it down, you mindful of the swallowing. And when you know whether the food is digested or not, and so when you know the food is digested, then you try to be mindful that it is digested and so on. So you eat with mindfulness in this way. So it is beneficial for people to eat food with mindfulness. So when you are eating with mindfulness and paying attention to all these activities, your mind becomes concentrated. You know, your concentration is developing, you understand. When this concentration is developed, you begin to see the true nature of these activities. You try to discover many elements. So first you practice what is called clear comprehensions of domain, Kochara Sambhasanya. That means you practice mindfulness on eating and other activities involved. When the clear comprehension of domain becomes mature, when you get concentration, then you begin to see the true nature of Nama Rupa, mind and matter. You begin to see clearly the activities involved. So you get Asamoha Sambhasanya, clear comprehension of non-delusion. Non-delusion means understanding clearly or you understand correctly. In these activities, actually, what are involved is just the elements, just the Nama Rupa process, psychophysical phenomena. Many elements are involved in these activities. Here we are saying eating, but when you sit, when you stand, when you walk, when you bend, in all activities, many elements you can discover when your concentration developed. Actually, these activities are nothing but these elements are functioning. Yeah, during eating, up the bowl, the picking up is caused by the air elements. You feel lightness. And that air element is again caused by your mind, mental activities. You capture the mental activities very clearly. You have the desire to pick up, and that is mental activities. And then you pick it up. So picking up is caused by the mental activities, which is the desire to pick up. And when you have a desire to pick up, that desire produces the material elements of air in your body. And it is actually the diffusion of these elements of air that we call movement. When you make movement, the air element is always involved. You pick up by the force of air elements, and then you take the food to the mouth, lifting the food to the mouth, and there is also air elements. By the diffusions of air elements, you put the food into the mouth. Again, by air elements, you open the mouth by air elements. You chew the food by air elements, and you swallow the food down to air elements. Now your noting mind is going along with all these activities, and you can discover at the same time these elements. When you make these activities, you can see that there is no such thing as standing, walking here, self-eating. It is just the air elements doing different function. It is the air elements that pick up the food. It is the air elements that takes to the mouth. It is the air elements that open the mouth, and so on. And what is involved is not only the air elements, but the earth elements. How do you find the earth elements? Earth elements has a nature of being receptacle, something for some other things. It is a nature of being receptacle, something. During the practice, you feel, you experience yourself when you really pay attention. This knowledge is not from the book, not from the teacher. You yourself can discover these characteristics of the earth element. When in the picking up or lifting the food to the mouth, opening the mouth and so on, the earth elements is also involved. When the food, after being crushed by the upper and lower teeth, reach the stomach, it is put there by the air elements. And when it's reached the stomach, it is cooked and it is digested. That digestion is by the fire elements or elements of heat. This elements of heat cooks the food, and so it becomes digested. After it is digested, it goes down through your intestine. That going down through the intestine is caused by, again, air elements. And then water element keeps the moisture in the food. It keeps the food moistened because it does not function. If it does not function, then the food will become dry because fire elements is there. So in order to keep digested food from getting too hot, the water element, keeping it moist and keeping it wet. So in this eating process, you now see many elements. Actually, it is these four elements functioning. They are doing their different function that we call eating, sitting, standing, etc. Here in the act of eating, we cannot find anything other than these elements. We cannot find any person or any self who eats, but just the elements or namarupa doing their respective function. So regarding eating, here the elements of space is also involved. That means it is like road for the digested food to go down to the lower entrance. There's nobody who picks up a stick and push it forward, but it is the air elements that moves the digested food. Downward. After for the food to go down, the space elements act as an avenue for it. And all these activities, even beginning with searching for food and so on, there is the consciousness, vijnana. There is mind, mental activities going on and going on also. So in the act of eating here, we find these elements during doing their respective function. You find just these elements and nothing else. So when you see that there is no such thing as a person or a self-eating, actually elements functioning together, you are said to gain the correct understanding, sampajanya, of the act of eating. So this correct understanding you can acquire only when you apply mindfulness to the activities. Through the establishment of mindfulness, you gain concentration or quietness or steadiness of mind. And when your mind becomes quiet, it becomes steady, it helps you to see the true nature of mind-body process. When there is dirt in the water, we cannot see through it, but when the dirt has subsided or settled down, the water becomes clear, we can see through it. So in the same way, when there are mental hindrances in our mind, we are not able to see these namarupa, mind and matter clearly. But once these mental hindrances are subdued, once they have settled down, then you begin to see clearly. When these mental hindrances are settled down, and you are said to gain a certain degree of concentration, when concentration comes, then the seeing the true nature of namarupa also comes. When you see that there are just these elements doing their different function at the moment, and no agent or no person is to be found, then you gain sati sampajanya, correct understanding of the act of which we call eating. So this understanding you can get only through your practice, not through reading the books or listening to the talks. It is very important to practice sincerely and diligently. You yourself can discover these elements expounded by the Buddha. So since it is your own seeing and you have to make effort, nobody can make effort for you. So you have to do it yourself. You have to practice, you have to apply mindfulness to the things you are doing. You have to apply clear comprehension to these activities. That is why in Vipassana meditation, meditator have to be mindful. You have to pay attention to whatever object is prominent at the present moment. But when eating, it is very prominent. These activities are prominent, and so you have to be mindful of these activities. It may be difficult for those who have no experience of applying mindfulness to activities in eating or maybe boring. But in order to see the true nature, meditators have to watch them. You have to be mindful of these objects. And it is through applying mindfulness that you gain concentration, and it is through concentration that you gain the correct understanding of these activities. So once you understand that the process is nothing but elements functioning together, then you can avoid attachment in these activities. When you can avoid attachment, or when you overcome craving in these activities, you are set to abandoning your mental defilements momentarily. This momentary abandonment will lead to temporary abandonment, and this will lead ultimately to total abandonment when you reach enlightenment. So in order to gain enlightenment, meditators need to see the true nature of Namarupa. You need to be dispassionate towards all conditioned phenomena. In order to be dispassionate towards all conditioned phenomena, meditators need to see the true nature. In order to see the true nature, you need to observe, you need to apply mindfulness and clear comprehension. So clear comprehension can be found in Kayanupassana Satipatthana, Kayanupassi Viharati. Meditators dwell contemplating the body in the body, are then clearly comprehending and mindful. So in this clear comprehension session, you have to be mindful of every sitting, standing, walking, stretching, bending, etc. All the activities have to be mindful. Not only the mindful, but also you need to comprehend clearly these activities. So here eating is one part of our life, and just by applying mindfulness, when you eat, you can go deep into the nature of eating, and you can understand that there's nothing you can call a person or a self to who eats, but just the elements of Namarupa functioning. So you get this correct understanding through direct observation of the activities involved in sitting, standing, walking, stretching, bending, etc. So now, only when the Venerable Asiji finishes meal, Upadesa asks question. Venerable Sir, your appearance is very elegant and impressive. Under whose guidance have you ordained? Venerable Asiji replied, I have ordained under the guidance of his noble Gautama, who renounced his majestic life of Kshatriya caste and practiced meditation until he became the fully enlightened Buddha. The one who was fully enlightened along with omniscience. And Upadesa asks, Venerable Sir, what does your teacher Gautama teach you? As Upadesa. Then Venerable Asiji considered that an ascetic like this was most likely to argue irrationally against the holy teaching. So Venerable Asiji, with intention to show how profound the Buddha teaching was, replied in a very humble manner thus, My friend, I ordained just recently, and I cannot talk much about my teacher's doctrine. In reality, Venerable Asiji was a fully enlightened Arahant. He was surely capable of teaching the Dhamma. Yet it was also true that he ordained just recently because he had been an ordained monk for about 6 months and a half from the full moon day of July to the new moon day of January. That is why Venerable Asiji said that he had recently ordained and was not capable of talking much about the Buddha doctrine. And Upadesa said, Apanwa bhawa basasu attanyewa me byuhi attenewa me atto kenkahasi binjanam bho. Please talk a bit or a lot. Teach me only what is meaningful. All I need is the meaning. What am I to do with extensive words? Upadisa said. Thus, Upadisa asked Venerable Asiji to talk a little or as much as he wanted, but talk only what is meaningful and insightful. But it would not be necessary to be eloquent and articulate by using flowery words. What important is the meaning, but not the words. A real Dhammasika only cares about how meaningful and insightful a talk really is, but not how beautiful the words are there in the talk. Some people, when they read books, care very much about how beautifully the words are used and how the presentation is made rather than how clearly the point is made. They would not like a talk unless stated eloquently, even though it is really meaningful and insightful. Such people listening to a Dhamma talk enjoy pleasant recitation and beautiful words and phrases, which are just delightful, but not really insightful. What important to learn from the Dhamma talk is how to practice correctly. That is, how to undertake the moral precepts, how to develop concentration, and how to cultivate wisdom. So to develop morality, concentration, and wisdom is important. That is why Upadisa said to Venerable Asiji, please talk a bit or a lot, teach me only what is meaningful. All I need is the meaning. What am I to do with extensive words? Then Venerable Asiji delivered him a brief but very profound message. Ye Dhamma hetu pabhava tesa hitung tathagato aha tesincha yo nirodo evam vadi masamano. Those phenomena that are arisen from a cause, Tathagata has told the cause and also what their cessation is. By this verse, Venerable Asiji directly talked about two kinds of noble truth. The truth of the origin of suffering, Samudaya, and the truth of the cessation of suffering, Nirodha. For common people, this verse seems to mean nothing special or nothing important. They may wonder how this little verse could possibly enlighten Upadesa. However, to Upadesa, the would-be Venerable Sariputra, this little verse was insightful enough for his spiritual attainment, because he was really wise person. In nature, a wise man can see further than what is actually shown. Such a wise individual can realize something clearly and comprehensively if he gets he gets just a hint, whereas a dull cannot even appreciate the comprehensive explanation. Here, late most venerable Mahasi Sayadaw taught the practical exercise of vipassana precisely and accurately. Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw wrote many books on how to practice and what to experience from both practical and theoretical perspective, based on Pali texts, commentaries and sub-commentaries, Pali Atthakatha and Dika. However, there are some people who cannot appreciate such noble teaching. To them, these teachings seem to be trivial. They don't believe that the person would gain such and such Dhamma experience if he practices in such and such a way. They are those who have not been endowed with enough parami to understand the Dhamma. So there is nothing teacher can do for those people. Even the fully enlightened Buddha cannot do anything to help those people out. So Buddha said, I cannot help those people who are wavering. Common people are like blind people, under Putujana, whereas people endowed with the wisdom eyes can see Dhamma far and wide if it is shown just in brief. So in the world, in olden days and modern days alike, people think that a person exists in the same solid form throughout his or her life. So they don't realize that a person is just a causal manifestation of ever-changing namarupa, psychophysical phenomena. And many people think that a mother's womb is the origin of human beings. So they believe that a human comes into existence in the mother's womb and comes to an end on his or her demise. They believe that a human exists in a solid form only for a period between his birth and death. Some people normally assume that a person is an individual who has transmigrated from a past life to the present life, which means the same person was reborn. On his or her demise, they believe he or she will transmigrate again to a new existence to be reborn again there. So he or she will be reborn again as someone, somewhere. This means they believe there is a certain living entity that keeps moving from one existence to another. So there are two kinds of view. belief in eternal soul that moves from life to life, that is Sasata Deity, and belief in the soul that exists only in the current life, that is Ocheda Deity. The annihilation view, Ocheda Deity, is that a being comes to an end on his or her demise. Whereas the eternity view, Sasata Deity, is that a living entity transmigrates from one existence to another. So these wrong views are not in line with the causality of psychophysical phenomena, because they believe that a being is always the same solid individual instead of a causal manifestation. So delivering this little sermon as taught by the Buddha, now Venerable Asiji directly indicated that there were only cause and effect, but no soul that exists forever or for a limited period between birth and death. Ye Dhamma Hitu Bhavawa, such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, have their origin in causes. That is Samudaya Sitya. Ye Dhamma, all phenomena, seeing phenomena, hearing phenomena, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, all these phenomena are dukkha sitya, the truth of suffering. Now you are observing to find this truth of suffering, and they have their origin in causes. There is origin in causes, that is samudaya sitya, the attachment or craving. Now meditators are observing these is to sitya, dukkha sitya and samudaya sitya, the truth of suffering and the truth of the origin of suffering. By observing these two sitya, you can attain Nirodha Sitya, the cessation of suffering, by developing the Mega Sitya, the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Now you are practicing. So this path is very short but very meaningful, and it is the illuminating message for the yogis to develop Vipassana insight knowledge. So we will continue tomorrow. We have to stop our discourse for today. By practicing Vipassana meditation, by observing dukkha sitya, by observing seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, standing, walking, stretching, bending, etc., continuously and meticulously, may you get rid of the samudaya sitya, the origin of suffering. May all meditators be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future. So.